Well, it's great to be here on the on this my inaugural campfire presentation, and also to join many other scholars working in the same areas as myself. I started actually as a marketer. Historically, if I think about the kind of conversations that I've been involved in over the years, within the sort of circles of people that I revolve around in, to the question, what do you do? When I respond that I'm a marketer, I'm usually met with raised eyebrows, some kind of horrified look, and people take themselves off to do something much more important that they'd forgotten that they had to do. And for me, this represents a sort of a common, if you like, a narrative that's associated with marketing that for the last 26 years, I've been working towards changing the sort of, areas that you see here in front of you, from marketing's the evil of society to marketing being responsible for excessive materialism or undermining people's self-worth or the image they hold about themselves, pushing people onto a never-ending satisfaction treadmill from which they can't escape. And of course, sometimes that's true. As a tool and a technique, marketing can be complicit in that. So when we go back to the origins of this and we take a look at the marketing concept itself, which is how marketing is conceptualized and how marketing activities are guided, we see over the passage of time that marketing's gone through a number of evolutions. You don't, not expecting you to be reading all the text here, but from the earlier conceptualizations, we see a focus that's predominantly on customer satisfaction, the introduction of the recognition of the importance of value to consumers, and then later still a recognition that we need to go further into a more macro view. And that's when we start finding marketing talking about well-being and quality of life and that sort of thing. And this is going back to the early 90s, but parallel to this, in a different part of the world and with a different set of priorities, I was defining marketing for myself in a working context and for sharing with students, and recognize that the ultimate purpose of marketing systems has to be sitting in a global economy about enhancing quality of life. And so these two definitions that I developed in 1997 and 2011 are differentiated in only to the extent to which 2011 we start recognizing the interdependency of consumers and other actors within that global marketing system. And so the idea of co-creating solutions comes to the forefront. So we've seen within the marketing realm, we've seen an advancement towards recognition of importance of well-being. And these are the sorts of narratives that we need to seek to continue, but we need an element of genuineness that perhaps is often missing to be integrated. So these might be epitomized by the sort of question that I've included at the bottom: how does I or what we do positively or negatively impact on the well-being of customers or equivalent clients, patients, etc., and those with whom we do business or engage, or society overall, as well as the planet, and how should we respond in that regard? So marketing, when we think about how it's implemented, itself has gone through a number of transitional shifts over time. I'm not going to go into any great detail on these, but we can see that the emphasis from the 1800s all the way through to the 1970s, there is an overlap here, is sort of consistent with that, with what I was talking about a second ago in terms of the marketing concept. From the 70s onwards, we see much more of a societal orientation, a greater emphasis on social systems, a greater emphasis on the environment, but predominantly still sitting in a very sort of a corporate competitive mindset. And clearly, from what we've heard from previous speakers, we need a different perspective. We need a different narrative, one that is more consistent with what I refer to as a restorative and regenerative orientation. And for the purpose of this particular presentation, I've developed if you like, a working definition. So I see regenerative marketing occurring when governments, organizations, and individuals co-create value propositions and enable all elements within a defined ecosystem to flourish. And so that's what I'm going to be using moving forward as a working definition. Of course, it will change as our understanding changes. And the key issue now for myself and for others to think about is, how do we go about implementing that? We need to change the conversation we have also about ourselves as consumers and actors in the global economy. So what would it mean to think of ourselves as producers of planetary health and wealth, and as actors, as active co-creators of value, as value exchange partners linked in a network of service exchange possibilities, rather than as consumers of planetary resources? And that's a very different take on things. We think of ourselves as consumers. How about we think of ourselves as active contributors and producers in opposition? So would our preoccupation with consumption change? I raised that as a proposition, a hypothesis, if you like, for testing. I suspect it probably will, but it will take a lot of work. It'll take a lot of self-reflective work by individuals too. And that's not something that marketing is going to change, but that's something for all of us collectively across our different areas of multidisciplinary to work on together. So the final message is, if we want a just and regenerative world in which all of the ecosystem elements flourish, we need to explore with wisdom and compassion how collectively we can create that new ontology, a new way of being, a new reality which is reinforced with new realities. That'll require a platform for conversation about constituent elements such as marketing, which is just one part of the bigger whole. And this is where I would talk about giving voice to values, but that'll have to wait for another campfire. And I'll hand over at that. Thank you.